Good evening and welcome to the 574th episode of Travel It Radio. I'm Dan Schlossberg along with my friend and colleague and producer, Roger Noriega. And we're in the 13th season of Travel It Radio, the show that lets you enjoy the pleasures of travel from the comfort of your armchair.
Every week at this time, we talk to people representing destinations, hotels, airlines, railroads, car rental companies, and others in the world of travel and hospitality, from authors and bloggers to broadcasters and publicists. If it's got anything to do with travel, it's got everything to do with Travel It's Radio.
Our guest today is my friend, travel writer and author Lisa Iannucci. Welcome, Lisa, to Travel It Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. First, though, Lisa, congratulations. You're the first person who has appeared on both of my podcasts, Braves Banter and Travel It Radio. So, like me, you're involved with both baseball and travel. Tell us how that twin interest affects your life, personally and professionally.
Well, first, as a Mets fan, can I have a moment of silence? Can I take that here?
Well, I'm a Braves fan, so same for me.
I know, right? Right. Well, I've always loved sports. I played when I was a kid, and as I got older, I wasn't able to play anymore, but I've always been watching it. I've been a Packers fan, a Mets fan. So sports has always been part of my life. And then I got into podcasting with my significant other, who you know is EJ Gar, and we ran a Sports Palooza podcast for about 6 years or so, where we interviewed a lot of players and a lot of authors like yourself, Dan. I believe you were also on that podcast.
Yes.
And but when I was a kid, obviously I couldn't travel, but I traveled later on in my life. And I started kind of combining them and ended up writing a book about sports travel, and I write about it. It's not the main thing I do, but I do it from time to time, and I've been able to combine both of my interests. I think that's the best thing about being a writer, is being able to combine your interests.
Like me, you've written, co-authored, or contributed to more than 30 books. Please share.
Well, writing was what I always wanted to do since I was a kid, since I could pick a pencil up or even a crayon up. And I've been a full-time freelance writer since my oldest daughter was born back in the 1990s. And I always took assignments writing about various things because I was building a business. So I wrote about real estate, I wrote about health, business, pretty much anything somebody would pay me to write about. But as the years went on, I realized that where my itch was, I kind of tied that in there, was writing about travel and sports and entertainment. So I would start writing. I took assignments to write things that would pay the bills, like real estate and health. But then I started branching off and writing about, sports and entertainment books and travel books. I started out with a healthy travel book. And my Will Smith book, there you go. I did a biography on Will Smith. I ended up appearing on his A&E version of his biography in, I want to say, Germany. So I'm dubbed in Germany on his autobiography. And I wrote Ellen DeGeneres' also biography, and I appeared on her A&E version in the States of it. And that was fun. That was exciting. And those are the things I really love to do. I really love to interview celebrities and write about travel and have a huge love of music. Of movies. I love music too, of movies and TV. And again, combine them and started writing more books that had to do with those areas. I even wrote one on bowling because I was a bowling. I bowled a lot. That was Healthy Travel was the first book I ever wrote on travel. And I had interviewed this doctor who specializes in giving you your vaccines that you need in different countries. And he and I collaborated on that book together.
And there's this one.
There's my road trip book. That's the Sports Lovers Travel Guide. And that came after the other book that you know of, which is On Location, which I'm sure you'll put that, but that came out afterwards. It came out in, get a load of this. It came out in March 2020, one day after the pandemic was started. And when they shut down the world. Yep. But
Oh.
the book actually did pretty well, I guess, because people really wanted to learn what they can go out and see and do. And it was a lot of fun putting together. So, yeah. So I've written more than 30 books on a variety of subjects.
Well, since you mentioned sports museums, we've got to talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame, my favorite. What's your take on the Hall of Fame?
You know, it's funny because I live in New York, and for years never went there. I went there as a kid. My mom took me there when I was a kid, but I didn't really remember it very much. And we didn't have a very good hotel experience, so she kind of turned around and came back. So I always wanted to go back as an adult. And you know, sometimes life kind of takes you in a different direction, and you don't necessarily do the things you want to do at the time. So when I started getting older and said, you know, I need to start in my own backyard. Now, Cooperstown's a few hours away from me, but it's my own backyard. I'm in New York. And I'm like, why have I not gone here? So when I started traveling again, that was one of the first places I went to. And it's awesome. I mean, I actually went off season when there was not a lot of people in the museum. And in Cooperstown themselves, the places were a lot of places were closed, but we had a blast. I mean, it gave us the time to really look at the exhibits and read things and say, okay, this is why we're here. And I learned so much. I thought it was great. I think everybody should go.
I've got to put in a plug here for Jay Smith and Sports Travel and Tours, the
Mm-hmm.
official tour operator of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I've worked for Jay for over 10 years on induction weekend. And that's the only way to see induction weekends, to go with Sports Travel and Tours, because they take care of everything. And it's worth the extra cost. It really is.
I know Jay too. He's amazing. And I think it's awesome to be able to go at that period of time and see the history there as the people are being inducted. That's amazing.
Well, I know that you live in the Northeast, so you haven't seen the Yogi Berra Museum or the Jackie Robinson Museum or any of those things?
I hate to say that I have not. But they are on my list of places to see. Now, travel writers, they'll write things that we see, and they'll write directories about things that you can do. So they don't necessarily get out to be able to see every single thing that's in their book. But I have written about those places, and they are on my list of places to see, because I just think the history is so important to this country, and to support museums like that is really important.
Okay, since you're obviously a baseball fan, let's talk about baseball movies for a second. My favorite is 8 Men Out, but I also love Fever Pitch and A League of Their Own.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find errors in films like I do? I mean, Shoeless Joe Jackson batting the wrong way, Field of Dreams, 47 Brooklyn Dodgers holding spring training in the wrong place in 42.
You really watch movies. Like you know, I love watching movies. I can't say I picked up on that, which is so funny, because I've seen Fever Pitch. I've seen some of the movies you mentioned like multiple times. Never picked up on that. So you actually watch them with a good eye. But did you actually know that there is a Shoeless Joe Jackson Museum in Greenville, South Carolina?
Yes.
Have you been there?
Yes. No, I have not been there yet.
Yeah, I'm hoping to take a trip there in the spring. But like I said, you know, onto your question, I've seen Field of Dreams and I've seen 42, and it goes to show you that just like books need editors, films need people to be able to watch things like that. And Fever Pitch is seriously one of my top movies of all time. I'm a rom-com girl, and it's a great movie, but I love the fact that it happened the year that the Red Sox actually won the World Series, which made it extra special.
They changed the original ending.
Yeah, I heard that like it was set, but then they knew that they were heading to the World Series, so they sent them there to film just in case.
Yep.
Yep.
That's the way to do it.
Oh,
We're talking with author and travel writer Lisa Iannucci. Roger, your turn.
Okay, you asked us to ask you, how in the world did you come up with the title of your website, the virgintraveler.com?
Yeah, I get a lot of looks with the name of that website.
I bet. What in your words is a virgin traveler?
Okay, so when I was younger, as I mentioned, I always wanted to travel, but as I got older, life gets in the way, you know, things like that happen. I got married, did some things with my kids. But I became a young widow when my kids were really little, 6, 4, and 2. So we did some traveling, but it wasn't kind of how I envisioned it. So when I made the decision when they were a little older that I wanted to finally get back to traveling again, I was having lunch with a friend and I said, I feel like a virgin when it comes to traveling again because I'm doing it for the first time. And it stuck. And we came up with Virgin Traveler and it stuck. So basically, what it's come to mean, beyond any kind of innuendos that people want to joke about, is you're traveling for the first time, whether you're younger or older. Now that I'm a little older, it seems to be appealing to people who are hitting the road after years of working or, just not having the money to do it for the first time. They're finally out there doing it. So my website kind of is my own personal blog, but I'm expanding it to start to include other people's stories.
Excellent. Now, you're also the founder of realtravelsmagazine.com, a personal blog dedicated to your film TV travels. What does that mean, and what is your goal with that site?
Well, it was actually created as an offshoot of the On Location book because I wanted a place to write more about movie and TV travel. And I would go, after the book came out, I would go see something new or hear about something new. And I didn't have any place to put it. I'm like, I can't do a new book yet. So I need a website. I need to be able to write about these other places that either weren't mentioned or I hadn't been to, or I finally went to and can talk about. So I created that website. And my goal is to actually grow the site so that it's like the premier website for people who want to check out what they can do with their favorite movie. So let's say, for example, your favorite movie is Field of Dreams. You can go to my website, type in Field of Dreams, and find out that there is a baseball field you can go to where they filmed the movie, and you can actually see games being played there. Or if your favorite TV show is The Walking Dead, there used to be tours in Georgia for The Walking Dead. So I want people to look at my site as the ultimate film and TV travel site for whatever movie and TV show. So I'm building it. I like Field of Dreams. I'll build it. They'll come.
Excellent. If you need pictures, Back to the Future's around the corner from me. And sadly, where they filmed A League of Their Own, the park recently had a fire and it burned down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was really, really, really sad. Or it is sad. I don't know what they're going to be doing. Maybe we'll have some information for you in the future.
Well, yeah, definitely keep me informed. And just keep in mind, too, that with the book or the website, I can't put in every filming location of every movie because it would be instead of encyclopedia size, it's too much. So I just try to say, okay, this is the city you can go to, or this is where there's something interactive to do. But I can't put every street corner in there.
Oh, of course. But that is good to know. Now, you obviously like podcasts. As a spectator and a participant, since you founded The Right Start, doesn't that actually aid your competition?
I don't think so. I think, it teaches writers how to start a freelance writing career and how they can make more money. I've been teaching freelance writing courses for years, and I always think that by sharing what I know and interviewing other writers on the podcast, I'm teaching people how to do what I did. And I think there's going to be competition in any industry. I mean, you guys have podcast competition, but you still do what you do because you love what you do. And that's me too. And so I don't think it hurts to help newbie writers kind of learn how to navigate the industry the way I did. They aren't writing what I'm writing. I'm not writing what they're writing, but we help each other. And I think that's really the most important thing is as an industry to help each other.
We are definitely kindred spirits here on NDB Media as we've helped people start and now they're on their own as well. So that's cool. I hear you. I really do. Now, switching gears, last year you took a 3-week road trip last year from New York to Arizona and then flew to California to see your first WrestleMania with son Travis. Was that actually a bucket list dream come true? Both the cross-country road trip and the WrestleMania part?
It was. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a little girl. And I'm going to say, like, 8, 9, 10 years old. I've been watching it. When I had kids, I introduced it to them. And my son, I have 3 children who are now adults. My son, we all still watch to this day, every Monday and Friday and every pay-per-view, we are texting, we are talking. So it's big in our life. And he always wanted to see a WrestleMania. And one day he texted me and his sisters and he goes, should I do it? And he had a picture of the ticket. And we were all like, do it, because it was out by him. And what he didn't know was while he was buying his, I was right behind him online looking for where he had said his seat was, and surprised him 5 minutes later with a seat right behind him. And I said, I'm going with you, because there was no way my son, after all these years, was going to experience that without me seeing his face. So I said, okay, the problem though is I had not been traveling since COVID. And I had a little bit of some fears about getting back on the road. But I said, okay, do I fly and just forget it? Or do I finally take my cross-country road trip? And I dove in and I said, okay, this is it. I got to do it. And I organized it and took the road trip cross-country, met him. And then, like you said, flew to California, went back to Arizona, and then drove all the way back and saw a whole bunch of things along the way. It was amazing and probably the best 3 weeks I've had in a few years. It was so much fun.
I bet. Yeah, it just on that alone, it sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of bucket lists, I understand that you've never gone to Italy or anywhere outside the United States. So, as Dan is a lover of Under the Tuscan Sun, why not and why now?
Okay. So when I found out that Dan is a lover of Under the Tuscan Sun, I freaked out, because Under the Tuscan Sun is okay. You have Fever Pitch, but you can put Under the Tuscan Sun over any of that. My favorite movie. And the first time I ever saw it, I cried, because the pictures of Tuscany were just incredibly beautiful. And up to that point, I didn't really think much about it, but that movie, I would look over the characters at first to what was behind them, and I started to cry. And I was like, why haven't I ever been to Italy? Couldn't get it out of my mind. Took a book of Tuscany out, looked at the pictures, started to cry, said, I got to go to Tuscany. This is too much. Life gets in the way. Yes. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, raising kids, you need the money to do that when you're on your own. Side note, breast cancer survivor, had to battle that pandemic. So I'm kind of hoping that 2025 doesn't say hold my beer and, doesn't let me get there. But my goal is to be there. Under the Tuscan Sun is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And my goal is to actually stand in a couple of places that were in that movie. And I can't wait. I'm praying that this is the year. So I'm also Italian. So why I haven't been to Italy, don't know.
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to get an answer after, but That's good. Now, I understand that you have another goal is to own an RV and travel the country. Aren't you currently on assignment for Airstream Life and RV Inspiration and covering the RV world for other publications as well?
Like I said, the one thing I love about writing is that you get to write about your interests. And if you're good at finding out information, you can write about anything, even if you don't do it. So I used to write about, being in property management in New York City. I've never even lived in New York City, but eventually you learn how to do your job well. And as I got older, yes, I decided, you know what, I need to really focus on what I want to be writing about, even if I'm not in that industry, which maybe it would kind of guide me to get it, so that's why I started doing more of the travel writing. And I stepped in an RV when I was about 14 years old. And I knew, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back even further, that when I was really little, my mother gave me a Barbie RV. And to this day, I keep telling my kids, go on to eBay and buy me it again, because that sparked, I just could picture myself living in an RV, driving around, always wanted to do it. Again, I'm getting there, but in the meantime, it doesn't stop me from learning about it and writing about it. So yeah, I've been profiling people who live in RVs. I have an article coming out in Airstream Life I'm writing for RV Inspiration, and it keeps me in there with the hope that one day it'll be mine. That's what writers do.
Heck yeah. This is Travel Edge Radio with Dan Schlossberg and Roger Noriega. We're in our 13th season and approaching our 600th episode. We're live at 5 New York time every Thursday on LinkedIn, YouTube, WhatsApp, X, Twitter, and Facebook. And you could probably make up a few others as well. We are talking with author and travel writer Lisa Iannucci.
And where do you live, Lisa? And how often do you get to travel? And do you write on the road or just take notes?
I live in Poughkeepsie, New York, the wonderful Hudson Valley. It's beautiful this time of year. So if you're ever somewhere else and you're thinking of traveling, you should come here. It's beautiful. And, you know, the funny thing is I work from home. I could travel whenever I want, to be honest with you. How often I do it? A couple times a year, and I want it to be more. So next year, I'm hoping for it to be a lot more than that. But I definitely get out a couple times a year. You know, and like I said, I had that the big trip last year. So I'm kind of hoping that, you know, I have more coming up next year. And how I work will depend. So, for example, if I'm only going to be away for a couple of days, most likely I'll just enjoy the trip and then write when I get home. But I'll take notes along the way. I'll kind of, you know, go back to my hotel, write what I saw, so I don't forget anything. But if on that 3-week road trip, I actually had an editor who was interested in some tips about going to WrestleMania. So I had to write while I was on the road, because by the time I got back, it would have been too late. So it really all depends on if I'm on assignment or not. But I do try to enjoy the trip as much as I can and do the bulk of the writing when I get back.
What is your favorite destination on the road, and how often do you get there? And what's your favorite airline and why?
You know, that's like picking a favorite child, your favorite destination. And I hate to tell you this, but I really don't have one. And the reason why is because since I got a later start into really doing the kind of traveling I want to do, every time I travel, I try to go someplace new. So I have to catch up on all these things that I haven't seen. However, I do have to say the place I've been to the most is Disney. And I am dying to go back because I've always wanted to do Christmas at Disney. But again, if I'm going to go back to Disney, I'd rather use my money to go someplace I haven't seen yet. So, but there are so many places I've loved, you know, to see. I mean, I loved going to the Grand Canyon. That was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And please remember that my experiences are limited compared to a lot of other people's, but I'm getting there. My favorite airline, I have to say I predominantly use Southwest or JetBlue, mostly because I haven't had any issues with either of them. And they always seem to be the ones that have the most affordability for me, and their prices match up with what my budget is. So yeah, so that's that.
Okay, I would recommend to you for Christmas Dollywood.
I want to go to Dollywood too. I want to do Dollywood, and then I want to kind of go across and go to Nashville and Memphis and do a whole road trip down there too. So yeah, that's on my list. My list is huge. As you guys can tell, you always keep saying you have goals. My goals and my to-do list is really large.
Yes.
Okay. How about your favorite hotel, Lisa? And what, in your opinion, makes a hotel worth its price tag?
Again, I'm going to say it depends, because what I think is worth it to somebody else might think is not. So like for me, I have to have that clean room and a bed that is helpful for my back. Because like I said, I am a little older, but you don't really know about the beds until you get there. But I also try to look for hotels that tie into my film and TV fun. So for example, when I was on that trip on Route 66, there was a hotel called El Rancho in Gallup. And they had like a whole bunch of history with celebrities that had stayed there. And there was a themed Lucille ballroom that I had to go to. So that whether or not it's a high-end hotel or low-end hotel, for me, it was a themed hotel, and that was important to me. There's another one in the Catskills up here called the Roxbury, and they have I gotta say at least 20 to 25 different rooms that are themed, whether it be Wizard of Oz or Fred Flintstone or Star Trek that you can go to. So what I look for in a hotel might be different than what somebody else does. So I'm kind of the middle budget. I'm not always looking for a high end, but I thought about it. And on the high end side, there was a hotel I stayed at in Lake George, the Sagamore, that is gorgeous. It's right on the lake. And I was fortunate to be a guest of theirs, and I got to stay in their penthouse, and I got the feel of what it's like to be on the high end side. It was luxurious. It was beautiful. So I think you have to really do what resonates for you, because I've been in a wigwam too, and I loved it. So I mean, it depends.
Have you taken cruises?
Don't hate me, Dan, but no. The last cruise I went on, I think I was in my early 20s, and it was one of those booze cruises. But I have to tell you that I do want to go on one of those river cruises in Alaska. That's also on my list.
Okay. Now, this is my favorite question of the night.
Uh-oh.
Tell our viewers about your most embarrassing travel experience.
Well,
or can you?
Huh?
Can you tell our viewers about?
I think I'll save the vote. No, I'm only kidding. The funny thing is I don't know if you'd call this embarrassing, but it was interesting to me, because when my kids were little and I was a single mom and I wanted to do the travel thing with them, I wanted to take them from where we lived in New York, which was in Westchester County at the time. We were, we weren't up in the Hudson Valley yet. And I wanted to take them to Vermont to see the Vermont Teddy Bear Company and to see Ben and Jerry's. At the time, my daughter was like, Mom, I want to be an ice cream maker. So had to take her to Ben and Jerry's. So I get in the car. Now, I'm going to date myself, but there was no GPS. You basically wrote out all of your, directions of where you wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And I had written that it would take about like 2.5 hours to get there. Well, you're smiling, so I know it's not 2.5 hours from where I am to Vermont. It was more than 4. And I was getting upset, and I was on the road, and my daughter chimes in from the back, and she goes, Don't get upset, Mommy. It's an adventure. And I kind of laughed and relaxed. And then I realized that I was being too intense about it. And here's my little kid in the back seat doing exactly what travel should be, is fun. And she had a field day. So we had a blast, and it was the best thing I've done. They still remember that trip, even though they're adults now.
We're talking with travel writer and author Lisa Iannucci. Okay.
How about a place, resort, or a plane ride that you would never wish upon your worst enemy?
The worst plane ride I ever took was from California back to Vegas. And I believe it was Southwest, and they had to do a turn at some point. And it was the worst ride ever, because it was so turbulent. I thought I was going to get sick, and they're turning and it's turbulent, and it was horrible. It was horrible. But the funny thing is one of the first rides I ever took when I came out of college, I went to go visit a friend down in Florida, and I get on the plane. It's New Year's Day, and there was hardly anybody on the plane, and they couldn't get the door shut. And I'm thinking, here I am finally flying by myself out of college, decide to take a trip by myself. And I'm looking at them, and they're like, they needed 3 people to close this door before we took off. Oh, wow. All I wanted to do was get off of this plane, because I was like, this can't be good. I turned behind me. There were at least only like 8 people on the entire plane. Fortunately, I told the stewardess, I was like, I'm a nervous wreck. And next thing I knew, I said to her, could you please keep an eye on me? Next thing I knew, I was out cold in the seat. I had fallen asleep, I guess, from all the stress. Got there okay. But if I ever see anybody pull an airplane door again, I'm out.
Wow. I hear you. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Now, was that turn over California or over Vegas?
It was as we were coming into Vegas.
Okay, so that was Nevada, the deserts. All right, LA
Mhm.
was okay.
Yeah,
So
LA was good. LA was good.
now
We're
I understand.
talking with author and travel writer Lisa Iannucci. Roger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I got a little ahead of myself then.
That's all right.
Um, you and Dan are both members of the North American Travel Journalists Association. What does group membership do for you?
I love being a part of organizations where we're all in the same industry and it's all about networking and camaraderie. We're in a solo business where we are working from home or by ourselves. So it's nice to have, whether it be online or eventually in person at events, to be able to see people who do what we do. We get inspired from them, we learn from them. And, it's conferences that can, help you in your career. And sometimes you'll meet writers who down the road, they remember you. So they might send you work your way or whatever. So I love it. I love being part of that association. And I've been a part of others as well.
Do you prefer press trips or traveling on your own? And if so, why?
When I was younger, love a press trip. As I get older, love traveling on my own. Some things I do on press trips I don't really care to do anymore, and I want to do things I want to explore on my own, and I have some physical limitations, so I have to keep that in my mind as well. So what I do is I reach out to places before I travel, and I work one-on-one with the press people, and explain what I'm doing. And instead of going on an entire press tour, it's geared to pretty much what I want to do.
How did you get into the world of travel and hospitality? And of course, have to ask which came first for you, sports, or travel?
Well, of course, sports, because when I was a kid, my mom didn't really travel with us a lot, so I had sports. I played it, and then I watched it until I got older. So then when I finally got that itch later on in life, I became an adult. I started doing it on my own. And when I was 19, the first trip I ever took, I was actually right before the Florida trip, to be honest with you, with the door. I went to California because I wanted to see Hollywood. And I paid for the whole thing myself. And when I got there, I fell in love with Hollywood so much that I pranked my mom, and I called her because she was expecting me to be on the plane the next day. And I said, by the way, I'm not coming back. I love it here. And boy, you could hear her yelling from New York.
Yeah, so you heard it in stereo, right?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I understand you're big on baseball. So I have to ask, which are your favorite ballparks?
Well, I'm going to be honest here, because even though I am a big Mets fan, I love Yankee Stadium. And I was fortunate to have a friend who works there. So when I went down, I reached out to him, and he was able to show us around and bring us into areas that nobody really gets to see. The fans don't really get to see. So I thought that was super cool. And they also have a museum there that has a lot of their history. And even as a Mets fan, I enjoyed it thoroughly. And when I went on that California trip when I was 19, I got to see Dodger Stadium,
Yes.
and I love Dodger Stadium. I thought that was also one of my favorite stadiums as well. So there's a lot out there. You got to look at the book, and you got to see all the different stadiums that are out there, and they all have tour. A lot of them have tours. I'm not going to say all of them have tours, and a lot of them have their own museums too. So it's definitely worth looking into, no matter whether you're a fan of a particular team or just a particular sport in general, to check out their history.
I appreciate that. That is cool. We are talking with author and travel writer Lisa Iannucci.
Lisa, have you been to any showcase events like the World Series or the All-Star Game?
No, but if you're asking me to go with you next time, I will. So when the Yankees made the World Series, I actually looked into ticket prices, and they're insane.
Mhm.
Behind one of the I want to say dugouts, it was like $13,000 for a ticket. So no, I haven't been, but I would love to go to the Super Bowl at one point too, if the Packers are in it. So yeah, that's that's a dream. I think everybody who's into sports, like you and I are, or anybody else, would love to go to an event like that.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you would like to add?
No, this has been amazing, but I do have to say that based on what I write about, if there's anybody listening that wants to reach out and kind of tell me their story about being a Virgin traveler or being a film and TV buff and being able to get out and see things. I actually used to do a podcast there too. I don't do that anymore, but I used to hear a lot of fun stories about people who have a particular movie and they went out of their way to plan a whole vacation around it. I love stories like that. So reach out.
Okay. And once again, there's your Will Smith book cover. Great cover, by the way. Really nice cover. How do Travel Itch Radio viewers learn more about you, and where can they find your work or hear you on the air?
Well, my websites are thevirgintraveler.com and realtravelsmagazine.com. And reel is spelled REEL for a film reel. And my Instagram is The Virgin Traveler. And my podcast is The Right Start, and Right is WRITE, and it's on Spotify, Apple, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, our guest today has been Lisa Iannucci, veteran, versatile, and energetic travel writer, author, and innovator. Thank you for being our guest on Travel Itch Radio.
I'm going to hold you to energetic. I'm going to keep going with it. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great show. And this is the 50th anniversary of the home run that broke Babe Ruth's record for Hank Aaron. This is also your chance to share the excitement with my new biography, Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron, featuring a foreword by Dusty Baker. This 265-page hardcover explores Aaron's contributions as a home run hitter on and off the field, as an athlete, and as an advocate for civil rights. That's Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. And thank you, Roger, for holding up the front cover. And that's it for this edition of Travel Itch Radio. Next week, same time, same place, same writer, we will talk to Kelsey Perry about Rhodes Scholar, not to be confused with Rhodes Scholar. Now, this is Dan Schlossberg, along with Roger Noriega, saying thank you for your time. This time, until next time, good night and stay safe.